Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Fearless Brand Leaders. Today we're sitting with Duncan Fulton, Executive VP Canadian Tire Corporation, CMO of FGL Sports. Welcome, Duncan.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Just want to jump right into it, Duncan.
Sure.
Get started. Got a couple of questions here for you. We'll see where it takes us. So just to get started, maybe tell us a little bit about your role and how you've been reinventing things recently.
So Canadian Tire is a big and complex company. You've got the Canadian Tire that we all know and love. Mm-hmm. Canadian Tire also owns Marks, owns FGL Sports, under which you've got Sport Chek, Sports Experts, National Sports, Atmosphere, Pro Hockey Life. So I sit on most of the executive teams across the company. I work on brand across the company, and I have direct responsibility for marketing for Sport Chek and Marks as well.
Excellent. And I think it's pretty well known that you've played a pivotal role in the transformation of FGL and the Canadian Tire brands. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the bold things that you're working on right now?
Sure. I think we have a great team. We have a great team there. We inherited a great team when Canadian Tire bought Sport Chek and FGL back in 2011. We did a number of team changes. We figured out early on who we want to win with as a company. And we found out that there's, give or take, 29% of Canadians that's driving almost 2/3 of the spend in our category. And sometimes in marketing, you have to pick who you want to win with to the exclusion of everybody else. So we picked that 29% of the country, learned everything we could about them, and have focused all of our marketing efforts on them. So we know that they're younger, we know they're digitally savvy, we know they're consuming digital media. We know that they hate print media. We know a lot about them. So that's shifted how we market to them, the channels we use, and we know what inspires them. We know that they're searching for some better version of themselves. So the entire new purpose of the Sport Chek brand has been to go out to inspire that 29% of the country to be a better version of themselves.
Yeah. As you know, this whole video series is really about bold leaders and the moves that they make. So maybe tell us a little bit about what you think your most courageous marketing decision was and what the payoff was.
I think there's been a few. I think deciding to ignore 71% of the country was a big bet.
Yeah, definitely.
We said we're focusing on this 29% that's driving the majority of our business, and there's so much space to win with them. We will win with them at all costs. We will exclude everybody else and focus on them. I think digitizing the flyer, given it's half our marketing spend, we're spending $20 million a year at Sport Chek on the flyer. That's not the payoff, though. So we are seeing the payoff at Sport Chek. Canadian Tire spends $120 million a year on the paper flyer. So if we can prove the efficacy of digitizing the flyer in a $20 million business, if you make a mistake at Sport Chek and you blow a week, who cares? You make a mistake on a Canadian Tire flyer in 12 million households and blow a week, everybody cares. So while it's important for Sport Chek, it's far more important for the enterprise on digitizing the flyer. And I think just the overall digital journey for the company, it's so obvious that the world is digital. Retail's not set up to live in that space. So Sport Chek is a bit of a tip of the spear for the company to be able to do things, test and learn, test and fail, and then feed those lessons back through the whole company.
If you could attribute the brand and marketing success of Canadian Tire and FGL to just a few things, what would they be?
At Canadian Tire, hands down, it's a decades-long commitment to the community. So like the founders of Canadian Tire in 1922, when they were selling tires, frankly, to rich people that could afford cars in 1922, as a small one-shop in downtown Toronto, in their first year of business, when the clergy knocked on the door and the food bank knocked on the door and the homeless shelter knocked on the door, they gave money back. And they established that as a fundamental cultural tenet of the company, that we will give back to the communities where we live and work. Today we give more than $45 million a year as a company back into communities, most of which goes into getting kids involved in sport. So the single biggest thing that Canadian Tire has done in Canada, I think, is not be an iconic retailer. It's being one of Canada's biggest community partners. I think that's something that Sport Chek can learn from, because Sport Chek is a relatively new brand with new purpose since we bought it. And there's a lot of growth there, and it's a young brand. It's not as deeply enriched in the community as it should be. I think Sport Chek's success, specifically in the last 7 quarters compared to the last 93 years for Canadian Tire, has been deciding who we want to win with, understanding what inspires them, changing everything about how we operate to execute against that customer base, and track and measure the results. So when we win, we can celebrate. When we fail, we can fix it.
It's such an exciting story, and that's all we've got for today. I really appreciate you sharing with me, Duncan.
Brad, thanks for having us here. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And please tune in next week for another episode of Fearless Brand Leaders. Until then, stay fearless.